All right. Good evening and welcome to Dark Hour Paranormal. I do apologize for the tardiness. I'm having issues with the internet again. Surprise, surprise. So we're going to do our best to work with what we have tonight, and we're going to have a great show. That's all I can tell you. We're going to have a fantastic show tonight because I have Phantom Detectives here in the green room waiting to come on and chat with not only myself, but all of you out there in the chat. Listen, if you guys are not familiar with this upcoming paranormal investigation team, I suggest you check out their website down below. It's phantomdetectives.org, and it's a sharp site. Let me tell you, they did some nice work on that. And of course, it does illustrate what the team is all about, the people that are involved, and the investigations that they have done up to this point. And I think if you look in there, they even talk about some possible future perspectives that they would like to go on. That being said, I'm very excited to have these guys with us tonight because this is the team that took care of John Cardy's investigation over at his place in Philadelphia. I think maybe about a week ago, maybe just a little over. And they did a fantastic job. They came in, they used all kinds of different methods to contact these extraterrestrials, spirits, or whatever other energy may have been present in the house. They also had a medium with them, so they had the right brain side of things as well. Very well done. All in all, and I appreciated every one of their attitudes when it came to paranormal investigation at large and respecting John Cardy's story and what he had to present, allowing them into his home. Professionalism to a T, guys. And if anybody should be doing this type of work, it's Joshua, it's Melissa, and it's Rick. And that's who I have here tonight with us to talk to you about the paranormal at large, paranormal investigation, and we're going to speak about the investigation over at John Cardy, wreaking havoc 215's house, again in Philadelphia. All right, without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you Joshua, Melissa, and Rick. How you guys doing tonight? Thanks for joining us here on the channel.
Good, how are
man.
you?
Good.
Hey, everybody.
Thank you for having us. Hi.
Good to see you.
Fantastic.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Hey, it's my pleasure. I mean, you guys, again, did a fantastic job over at John's place, and it's not an easy spot to shoot. I mean, you're in a busy urban area, to say the least. I think he might even be more of the city. You guys would know better than I. But that being said, there's a lot going on in those buildings in the way of flesh and blood life. People living upstairs, people coming home from work, boots stomping around. There's all kinds of variables to consider when getting into a place like this. And you guys walked in there, grabbed it by the throat with the equipment and the dowsing rods that you guys were implementing. Again, thought you did a very fantastic job. So, for the hell of it, let's start here. Okay. Josh, let me start with you. And of course, Rick and Melissa, feel free to join in at any point if you have something to say on that matter, even if the question isn't directed at you. Josh, what were your initial thoughts going into John Cardy's apartment with what he had shared with you in the way of physical evidence, anecdotal evidence, and anything otherwise? What were your first thoughts going into that investigation?
My first thoughts going into the investigation is this guy definitely has a lot of credibility from the evidence that he was able to show with us prior to the initial interview. On May 28th of 2021, we always have, before we go and jump into an investigation, we always have our Director of Client Relations, Rick, interview the potential clients to determine if the case is worth picking up. And so basically, Rick went ahead and interviewed Mr. Cardy for about 30 minutes and was able to determine that John was having all sorts of paranormal activity within his apartment, from his sheets being pulled off by themselves, from capturing extraterrestrial spirits on his security cameras, from basically hearing voices all over his apartment. So after we took after reviewing all of the the interview from John and speaking to him directly, we decided that this case was one that basically needed to be done, because I felt that there was a lot of things out there that needed to be helped, and he was crying out for help, and he needed someone to come in that could help document his findings, because he was too scared to tell his landlord about the paranormal activity that was happening within his apartment. So he actually called us, and we went in and we did the investigation to help him as much as we could.
Now, before
So if I
I
want,
ask that,
oh, go
yeah,
ahead.
I'm sorry. Just before I ask the same question of you, Rick and Melissa, very quickly, we know that Wreakin' Havoc not only has paranormal activity purported at his house, it's also involved with extraterrestrial energy at the very least. Now, let me ask you in one quick answer here: was your findings, your conclusion, anything in the way of extraterrestrial phenomenon, or was it more based on paranormal phenomenon?
Um,
I think at this point, I'd say more paranormal to me, um, but I think there's more than one thing that's going on there. And so, but I just want to say that originally when, I called John up to talk to him, it took a while before we connected and I wanted, to ask him some questions. And one of the things I look at coming from a background as a certified UFO investigator is what you want to try to do. Number one, you never want to try to bait the witness. We always refer to him as a witness. And what we want to do is ask, go through some questions. What I usually do is have a list beforehand of questions that I want to ask. And I try to make sure that the person I'm talking to, they feel comfortable with me. And then the whole idea is you want to let them tell their story in their own words. That's like a really important thing when you're doing an interview with a subject. Let them tell the story, ask some questions, and then you can kind of see, like, what you think. But if you just go into, in an interview and you just say, yeah, well, that's definitely a ghost. Yeah, it's definitely a UFO, that kind of thing. Then you're really not doing a proper investigation because you need to properly investigate the case and then you need to gather all the data before you arrive at a conclusion.
Very well said. And I think, again, this, the words that you guys are speaking so far is reflecting your professionalism. And that's something very important to understand when it comes to analyzing specific investigational groups. I mean, there are a host of them out there, actually less than they used to be, but that's because a lot of those outfits had sort of fallen by the wayside, deteriorated from within. You name it, there was a reason that some of these didn't stick around. Rick, very quickly, you said that, I'm sorry, I don't think I got this correct, but you said you're a certified UFO researcher? Is that what you said?
Investigator. I'm also a researcher
Investigator.
because,
Okay, so
yeah, certified through MUFON. I come from a MUFON background, and I went
okay,
through
so
MUFON University, and yeah.
what does that entail exactly? I mean, with what you can divulge about your education from MUFON to become a certified UFO investigator, what does that entail?
Well, originally, when I've always, ever since I was a kid, I remember having my own experience, my own sighting, and you know, but it's one of those things where, like, at that time, I remember it's like if you talk to other kids in the school or something, I was afraid to say anything because I thought, I didn't want them to think like, hey, this guy's crazy or what have you. So sometimes, you don't talk about stuff and you don't say things. And so I've always had an interest in the subject of ufology. And, then when, I started looking around, I watched a few TV shows, on TV about UFOs, UAPs, and I see, MUFON there. So, I start checking into it. And at the time, I didn't even know that, MUFON had a place where people can go and they can submit a sighting or event report and have it investigated. And the way it works is somebody, puts in they filled out a submission form, which is called a short form. Then after that, it goes to a special group of people that classify the case, what it is. So everything, they go off the Jacques Valley classification system. And once they get that information in short form, then it's sent off to the state director. So in my case, I was, working with, the state director for Delaware, MUFON Delaware.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, it'll go from the chief investigator to somebody who's new, just starting out as an investigator. But basically, you have to study for the exam. There's a lot of studying to do. The training is really, really good training. and then you kind of work your way up the chain of command. I'm no longer with MUFON now. Now I have my own investigative organization called ERC, which stands for Extraterrestrial Research Center. And I also have, I'm the director of investigations, and then I have another guy with me. He's the director of research. So that's kind of where I'm at right now, where we're heading,
Well, that's fantastic, Rick. And you know what? At another point, because I know this would be a very lengthy conversation if you were game, I'd love
Yes,
to sit
sir.
down and talk to you about that process a little bit and where you came from. Now,
Yeah,
Melissa,
definitely.
before I get to you very quickly, Elena, thank you so much for the $5, £5 super chat there. Iano? Am I saying it right? Elena Iano. I think I am. If not, you'll correct me. But thank you so much for your
Yes.
support, and we love seeing you here. Welcome to the show. Melissa, same question for you
Yes.
that I had proposed to the boys here. What were your initial thoughts going into this investigation? Did you have any expectations or prior, what's the word I'm looking for, anticipation?
I usually, it's all about first impressions for me. So I didn't have any, I really didn't know what to expect, to be quite honest, because I tried to, I don't really want to have any prior knowledge going into an investigation because I want to see if what I tune into can be validated using our equipment. So this is my second investigation with the team, and both of them were very unique. So I had very little knowledge prior to going into John Carty's apartment.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I mean, it was immediate when I first encountered a spirit. I mean, it was interesting. The energy was very strong in that apartment. So, so like I said, going in there, very little knowledge, only that there was a lot of activity. So it didn't take me long to feel that. I mean, when first entering that, I mean, it was incredible, extremely strong. I really can't put it into words. But it was interesting who I encountered first. I mean, it was I mean, I can go into what my initial, thoughts were, what I picked up immediately, if you'd like me to.
Absolutely.
It was the spirit of a woman, and she showed me that she was middle-aged and very much into saying, "This is my domain." She wasn't very welcoming. She wasn't happy to see us, and
No.
yeah. So from there, I mean, I encountered some other spirits. Each room had its own impressions, and I would say that the bedroom definitely had the strongest energy of all. I mean, to the point where I became downright nauseous. I mean, it was pretty intense in there. So, but what was neat was that we could validate with the various pieces of equipment, the different things that I was feeling and who I was seeing, especially with our ovulus, the words that came up. So it was very interesting, and it was very intense. So that's probably the best way I can describe it. It was a very intense.
That's curious.
Mm-hmm.
That's very curious. Out of curiosity, let me ask you, Josh and Rick, do you guys feel like you have some sort of hypersensitivity to environment in the way that perhaps Melissa does? We might call clairvoyance, psychic, or ESP. Do you guys share that same innate trait that
I don't
to be able to see and interpret
I
things
think
on a different frequency do?
I think I could pick up some things myself, but not to the level, of course, where Melissa's at. But I will say this, going into John Carty's apartment, and because here's the weird thing, because when we went into the Selma mansion, okay, it was like 3 levels, okay, and there's all these rooms and stuff like that. So I'm thinking, if there's going to be some big physical effects upon leaving that place, maybe you felt like something's following you home, or you felt an uneasiness, weight on your chest, or feeling a sickness. That's where I thought I was going to pick up that kind of thing. Going into John Carty's place, especially in his master bedroom, okay, that's where we found the greatest activity in there. But I will say this, we went into that place feeling good. I mean, we're happy to do the investigation, but we felt healthy. And we all felt physical effects of feeling weak and sick and things like that. And I remember I had to work the very next day, barely got through the day because I felt so drained. And we all felt like this sucked the life out of you. Like all your energy had just been sucked out of you, that kind of feeling.
Absolutely.
I mean, just think of,
Definitely.
John, who's living in this day
Yes.
in and day out, sleep in his own bed. Now,
Mhm.
while I understand the experience that he's going through, um, I think that when you walk into a space like this, okay, and you start feeling something like that and you get these results and you realize that there's somebody else who's really living in this space, what's the sort of advice that you can give to somebody who's in John's shoes, wherein he can't move, let's say, this is where he lives. How does he maintain a healthy balance throughout his environment and his life? Because we know this has affected him negatively in a physical sense, waking up with, sprained ankles, all the way through his childhood, problems, marks
Yeah.
on his body, all these other strange anomalies. What's the best kind of
Yeah.
advice
And
you can
I've
give
seen a
to
lot of
somebody
his
like him?
markings. I've seen a lot of markings that, because John sent some markings to me and stuff like that. And I,
Hmm.
texted him back and stuff that, hey, you know what? I would love to take on this case as some people call it experiencer or an abduction case and bring some other people into the investigation. But I will tell you this, I definitely feel that John is a very credible witness. Um, and, just, I would say to someone that you have to outweigh, you know, if you're staying into a place that you feel is inhabited by maybe some family members that passed away, or you feel that maybe somebody died in there, but you don't really feel that they're a threat to you. You feel
Hmm.
it's not demonic.
It's just a
It's
presence.
not an evil entity, but it's a presence there. And I would say to someone, if you felt that you can coexist and get along together without feeling horrible negative effects, then maybe it's worth considering giving it a shot. Because the way I look at it, you almost kind of have to look at it like, you know, the spirits are thinking like, you know what, hey man, you know what, I was here first. This is my place, and then whoever else comes in after that, you're just a guest into their place, kind of thing.
Mhm.
But I
Hmm.
think if it comes down to the point where it's affecting your physical health, and it's affecting you mentally, your concentration, maybe even your job, then you need to ask yourself some important questions. Do I want to stay in this environment? And do I want to continue to feel these horrible physical effects that's making me sick?
Well, there are many cases, especially when it comes to families, that have found themselves buying a property thinking it was their dream home. Of course, this is the cliche story. It goes all the way back to the Amityville nonsense, if you will,
Oh yeah.
wherein they find that there's
Mhm.
something else living there prior to them arriving. And they've sunk all their money into this property. They cannot move, and they're really up against whatever they have in front of them. That's those kind of people, I think, are in the worst of places, and yet you have to wonder if there's some sort of synchronicity to have these experiences if you signed up prior to. Josh, let me ask you the earlier question I asked Rick and Melissa. Did you feel anything as you entered that space? Any sort of electricity, any sort of negative energy initially, or throughout the investigation?
I felt a lot of negative energy when I initially basically picked it up. I actually have clairsentient ability where I can sense things, not like the clairvoyant or the clairaudient, but I basically can sense. Like felt like things were very uneasy. I felt that we weren't very welcome there. It was like basically these entities that were there were saying, "This is my space. You guys are invading our space. You need to leave
Yes.
now." And we had that feeling as soon as we entered that apartment, like basically we were not welcome, being an investigative team to help Mr. Cardi, document his experiences with our equipment. So I definitely felt the feeling that we're being watched, that we're basically very much like we're completely like a whole entire weight like completely bearing down on us. So I definitely felt very uneasy from the minute that we entered that apartment and from the minute that we left that apartment.
Very
In
curious.
the
You know,
beginning,
yep.
Absolutely.
excuse me. In the
No, go
beginning,
ahead.
when Joshua, told me about this case and everything, and I told Joshua, hey, you know what, I would be good to interview this guy. I can, ask him some questions and things like that. And I think in the beginning, after, John Cardi, felt like, um, that I wasn't like, I was very respectful to him and with his time, that kind of thing, trying to make him feel comfortable. But originally, he had sent us some pictures that we got, that was taken from the video footage of some images on the wall, and he had marked some of these images. And what I did was I actually, was using my graphic software and that sort of thing. I actually enhanced the images, to bring out what he saw. Now there were some images I thought that were, a little bit iffy, that I kind of wasn't like, really sure. Like I thought, what, I think I need a little more evidence on those particular things. But then you could see some images that really had a type of human shape to it. And I thought, wow, that doesn't look like, like somebody just traced something on the wall. I mean, that really looks like something. And then on the right corner of the wall, looking at that, it looked like a demon face, and you're looking at that and you're going, man, that that looks like the devil himself. It was scary looking.
Mm-hmm.
And disenlarging that, I got a better look at it, and I thought, wow, I think there's something definitely here. But so no doubt, it's definitely I thought it was a good case in the beginning.
I think that, I'm going to give you my honest opinion on John's apartment there.
Yeah.
Following him from essentially the very beginning and seeing what he's been going through and the evidence that he's put forth, I think that experientially there is absolutely something happening with him, to him, and around him. In way of some of those images, here's what I'll propose. Okay, so you take, for example, some of the images, these still shots that look like some sort of gray shadow, a gray being, up against the wall. It looks like a silhouette of sort, right?
Yes.
Now, initially, I'm looking at this, I'm saying, okay, you're slowing this down to 1/10 of a frame. This is artifacting, which it may still be. But the thing that I have to look at is the consistency in which these shapes appear. Why is it always appearing to be a head with eyes and a mouth? I mean, that's very odd. Again, I mean, maybe somebody out there can explain that to me, but it's not something that I've come up with. Misty OC Dragons, sorry, I meant to get to you. Thank you very much for the Aussie. Beautiful dragon, as you are beautiful yourself, and I appreciate that as always. Thank you so much,
Nice.
Misty. Elena has said, Dark Hour, my son and I have often woken up with scratches on us. Looks like cat scratches, but we don't have a cat. We've had them on our arms, legs. I had a V-shaped scratch on my neck. Odd. Before I want to address this to you guys very quickly, I will say that I have had one experience of my recollection where I did wake up with scratches. In fact, I woke up and from my wrist all the way up, there were 3 distinct scratches that actually looked exactly like Elena's describing. It looked like a cat. But the cat that we had was not a cuddler, didn't really want to have much to do with us in way of affection at that time, and there was no way it was in the bedroom throughout the evening. So yes, I've experienced that. It was around a very tumultuous time in my life where I knew I had a negative entity around me. Guys, what are your thoughts on the paranormal affecting us in such a negative physical way? Anybody can jump in.
You know what, I'll tell you what, man, because like you mentioned the scratches, and there's a couple times I had these scratches on my leg, and I, just kind of read about it a little bit, and it was being referred to like what they would call demon scratches, and the fact that because it's 3, it has something to do with, I guess, the Trinity or something. Maybe one of you guys might, want to elaborate on that. But, you have to ask yourself, like, okay, so what happened, when you got, do you have any pets or anything like that? Do you have any nails? Number one, I mean, I'm a nail biter, but not a good habit, right? But I have like no nails at all.
Better
So
than
it
being
couldn't
an
have been
ankle biter.
myself. Exactly. I haven't tried that one yet, but yeah.
You got to be a
But
little shorter,
anyway,
man.
so I got exactly, yeah. But there's a cat here, dogs and stuff like that. But I've never had the cat try to scratch me. Nothing from the dogs. If I ever had some kind of dog scratch, it's usually one of the dogs jumping up on my chest because it sees we get a lot of foxes out here in Delaware in the backyard, and rabbits and squirrels and all kinds of stuff. So the dogs will like jump on you because they're trying to, look over your shoulder or get out the window and see what it is. And then sometimes, you might get a little scratch there, but those scratches look totally different than the ones I have, which is basically, I think, what you're describing.
Elena, I'd be curious to know if any of those scratches at any point in time actually burned. That's something that I experienced. It's something I've heard other people say, that the scratches actually burn like they're on fire, or you're being scratched with a hot poker, and it's persistent. It takes a little while to go away, and of course the wound itself heals very unnaturally. It seems to either happen very quickly or it sustains again, where it doesn't really seem to heal depending on your health. Now that's something I wanted to bring up very quickly because I've been involved in the field for many, many years, as you guys have in your own ways as well. And one of the things I learned and understood early on is that you need to take care of yourself, be grounded, be void of any sort of personal issue or affect that's going on in your life when you enter a space like this, because positive or negative, those things are amplified. What do each of you do to prepare yourself in that way to go into a space? Melissa, I'd like to start with you.
Well, there's various techniques that one can use. I think the one that many of us are familiar with is sage. So burning a sage stick, I'll just take that and sage the front of myself and even behind me as best as I can. There's also techniques. There's holy water. Sometimes you can even use regular, olive oil. And I've heard that the back of the neck is a very vulnerable place. So I will make a cross on the back of my neck and even on my forehead. Sometimes I will bring crystals with me to absorb any negative energy. So there are the basic techniques that I will use, saying a simple prayer, also envisioning a bubble of white light around me. But I totally agree that coming in there protected is very, very important. And I've suffered the effects in the past of going into a place and not being protected, because spirits will drain us just like they will drain the batteries in our equipment, because we're energy as well. So they will draw from us in order to communicate, make their presence known, whatever it is. So it's very important, as you said, whether they are positive, whether they are negative, they will drain you. So it's important to be grounded more than we realize. And even leaving an investigation, I will sage myself as well, because, there's always that thought of, okay, what if they attach themselves, come home with you? I'm not sure. I know everyone, people have had their experiences where that may have happened to them, but whatever measure we can do, we can take. It's important more than we realize. So
that's fantastic, and it's in the way,
Mhm.
in the way of protection, which is great. And it was something I wanted to ask you guys anyway. But I also mean in the way of your own personal life. For example, if I have an argument with my girlfriend or something, or my mother, prior to going into an investigation, something that's left unresolved, that I find actually weakens a person in doing this sort of investigation. Are you guys religious, out of curiosity?
Yes, we are. And we actually have
all three of you?
Yes, we are. We're born
Okay.
again Christians. We very much worship Jesus and basically believe he's our Lord and Savior. And we also have a very special rosary that we got from Dave Schrader from the Holzer Files.
I saw that.
And basically he was the, in the Don't Tell Me No More Lies episode where he went to the merchant's house in New York from season 2, episode 2. We have his rosary that basically was given to him, I believe, by Melissa's teacher and mentor, Cindy Kaza. And also, I think that it also came from Alexandria Holzer, who basically was the daughter of Dr. Hans Holzer.
Okay, so let me ask you this before I do. Michael Shoemate, yes, I did get the email. I just haven't had a chance to get back to you, brother, but I promise you I will. Give me a few more days and I'll get right on you. Let me ask you this. Now, we understand that this phenomenon is not a modern thing here. This is something that's been going on for as long as mankind has recorded history, and that may be in the way of ancients using these energies or befriending or allying some of these negative entities even, but to direct them and use them for their own purpose. They were aware of the sacredness of a burial ground today, any sort of indigenous tribe, you're going to feel a certain energy that you won't find in a modern graveyard by and large. So where does the religion really factor into this aspect? If this is an old world anomaly that didn't necessarily have that in respect to its existence back then, but now we're using religion as some sort of tool against it, where does that fall in there other than your own belief systems?
I think overall, especially with a lot of times with basically that, it's very important to make sure to really study up on different aspects of, how, different religions to be able to really prepare yourself on investigations. And that way, the more that you can study up and read about different aspects from, demonology to, basically, Christianity to just get a Catholicism and just get a good idea of how to approach different things. There's different techniques and styles that you can implement on your investigations from those from those different opposite things that you can do. So you can really apply what is in a lot of those teachings and basically and use it on your investigations on a daily basis.
But if I'm somebody who isn't religious, and believe me, I'm not trying to dog you guys here.
Yeah.
These are genuine questions I have.
Yeah.
If I'm not somebody who's religious and I decide that I want to go into one of these spaces and I want to do an investigation just like you guys do I have to have religion or a belief system like that to protect me? Or is there other mitigating circumstances that I can
I don't think
and be
necessarily.
okay?
I really don't think necessarily. I believe that a person could come into a place like that with a maybe they're atheists or maybe, whatever their religion may be, or they don't have a really religion, but they want to get involved in paranormal investigation. So my thing is that, if you're going to come into a situation like that, kind of like what Melissa was touching on before, there are things that one can do to help prepare yourself before coming into that situation. And naturally, every place you go into, it's gonna be different. Like you might be coming into a paranormal investigation, and the whole house is filled with malevolent spirits that are very angry, and maybe you felt something slap you on the back or something like that, very kind of an evil thing. And then I would say, a person like myself, that if I'm experiencing something like that, I'm going to want to pray and ask God for His protection, because I feel that that's something that God would provide for me. But maybe those people that are not religious, that don't necessarily believe in that, there are other things, to banish things that are evil, with, like Melissa mentioned, with saging, with holy oil, holy water. But somebody may say, well, hey, you know what? I don't believe in anything holy at all, and that's a possibility.
Right.
But then, you still need to use your own judgment when you're going in a situation like that,
Right.
because you really don't know what's going to happen.
Can I go in as a Jew or a Muslim and bring my own strength and faith and have the same result as a Christian?
Absolutely.
Sure.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Because you know what it comes down to? It's all about your intention. Intention means everything.
Bingo.
That's what it's about. That's it in a nutshell. So if your intention is to be protected, whether you're religious, whether you're not, you can pray to whoever you resonate with, or not to pray at all. And a lot of these means that we use are universal. It doesn't necessarily have to apply to any particular religious belief, if you will. Something like sage is universal. Crystals. I mean, they may tend to be a little more earth-based, but it doesn't, it doesn't matter. So, like I said, it's all about your intention. If your intention is to go into a space protected, then you will be. So that's it. That's what it comes down to.
I couldn't agree with you more.
I think you're going to have people too, because like
I really
I
couldn't
will
agree
say
with you more.
this,
And yep,
like everybody, from Joshua, Sasha, Melissa, myself, we work very well together as a team. We come in with a lot of respect to each other, but not even
Yes.
just that. We come in with a lot of respect to the places we're investigating. Okay.
Exactly.
Exactly.
When we come in, like, we don't try to challenge these entities, these anomalies, anything evil or non-evil for that matter. We're basically there. We come in to gain knowledge. We come in to research, to investigate. We come in to look for answers to share with other people. And in so doing this, we go from room to room. We use different apparatuses to help us with our investigation, but we also ask questions, and we do it respectfully, not demanding that they answer your question, but rather in saying thank you for inviting us into your home or allowing us to be here today. And I
Right.
think you get, even with when you're dealing with the dead, when you're dealing with spirits, I think you get much better results if you come in there as a friendly person.
Yes.
Because let's
Yes,
think about it.
definitely.
Nobody likes an a-hole. Even
Right.
about the
even
kind of
even
response you're
spirits
gonna
don't
get.
like
Yeah.
a-holes
Yeah.
anyway, right?
It's
Yeah,
about being humble. You got to come in there
yeah,
humbly. This is
Yes.
their space too. So yeah, you come in
yeah.
there, as Rick said, respectfully, giving them a voice. What would you like to say to us? You're not challenged. You're not forced. This is your turn to talk. What would you like to tell us? So yeah,
How
it's about respect.
how easy or how easily, because we often understand or at least come up against the information that suggests that some spirits are weaker or have less knowledge in way of this sort of communication. Now, my understanding, getting on the other side, there is a process of acclimation. So you may find yourself, in the light body, and you may be still in the same environment in which you passed, and you're still technically in the physical, but you're in an overtone. That being said, you want to pick up your phone. So you try to do this and you can't. But if given enough time and possibly even enough direction from the other side, that spirit can then interact at some point if given enough energy, possibly in the same way that you and I might practice telekinesis or something along those lines. How easily, again, do you find some of these spirits coming through? Are some of them stronger, and do they show why they're stronger? Have they been there longer? Are some of them weaker? Is there a reason for it? What have you guys discovered? Just let me start with you on this.
I think overall it all depends on the location that you're going. It all depends on, basically, is it a residential case? Is it a actual business that you're going to be entering? Every place has a different energy to it, and every spirit interacts differently with these locations that you go to. So sometimes they manifest themselves in different ways. And from our first 5 investigations, from the Sanderson Museum to the Mill of Aunt Selma to the Betsy Ross house, to the Selma Mansion, and now to John Carty's apartment, we've discovered that we have spirits that manifested themselves from our voice recorders picking up EVPs, to our thermal cameras, to also basically doors,
SLS,
SLS
yeah,
camera,
spirit
and
box,
spirit
yeah.
box and so forth. And also, basically, we have also had, secure our DVR system picking up doors flying open by themselves at the Mill of Aunt Selma on January 9th, which was an amazing piece of evidence that was
That
never
was
captured
nice. That
before.
was a good catch. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also, overall, we also had quite a few times where a lot of times our equipment will sometimes even malfunction while we're doing the investigations. We have had.
Okay, I think we lost the host. He'll probably call back in. Here he comes.
Oh, here he comes.
There's Dark Hour. There he is.
I'm back.
Good to see you,
I'm
man.
back.
How are you? You're
Oh,
back. We missed you already.
Yeah.
and here's Josh. Go, Josh. Nope, there. What is that? Right, there we go. Yeah,
Hey, I got a question,
hey,
Dark
what was
Hour.
it?
Are you hardwired or are you
I want
a
to
wireless?
question something that's been sort of mine for quite some time. When I started paranormal investigations, already too late. It was I'm on one of these mesh routers, and unfortunately, it's all I have access to in the place that I live. So I'm just going with what I've got.
Yeah.
But this is something that I've been thinking about lately. Again, starting back in 2008, 2009, I was already late to the field in certain respects. Is paranormal research, the way that you perform such a task, relevant today? The advent of nationalized hosting shows airing over 20 years ago.
Oh, definitely. I feel overall the field has evolved quite a bit. And when I first got my start, my first ever investigation was at the General
Did you
Wayne
catch that?
Inn. And no, sorry, can you ask the question?
Yeah, some of it cut out a little bit.
Yeah.
Can you type out the question as you say it? I don't know how hard that would be, but how fast you type.
Yeah, I gotcha. No problem. Um,
I can't type that fast
hopefully,
myself, but I don't know.
I can hear you.
all right,
You
I'll
sound
ask you,
better
and I'll
now.
type
Yeah.
in the private chat there. Is is okay, good. It's in and out, Is more research today with the advent of nationally televised ghost hunting shows airing over 20 years ago.
What's the question? Are we comparing the old TV shows to the more modern ones of today?
I'm typing it out. Well, any of these ghost shows, and most people are really jaded. Do you see the paranormal field having today, especially in the way of, bringing convincing evidence forward or, something beyond personal conviction?
Josh, would you catch that, Josh? I don't see you, Joshua. Maybe he's having internet troubles too. Well, I didn't quite get the question, but I will say this. I think when you go back to a lot of these shows, paranormal shows, we have quite a few of these. Some have stuck around a long time, like Ghost Adventures, and and I forgot the name of this other show with these college kids. They come out and they do their investigating, and you have
Was that like Paranormal State? I think Paranormal State.
Paranormal State. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
There's
And
yeah.
yeah, and then you have you have these other guys that are coming in that are doing their shows, and then they get re-signed or what have you. But I think the way some of these shows have changed, a lot of it is technology based.
Yes. That's what I was
Because
thinking.
some of those spirits that we are investigating, that we're communicating with, they might, speaking to another investigator that was there like 30 years ago,
Mhm.
and then now we're coming in and we're asking questions. But the difference is now
Finding different
we're really
results. Yep.
we get deeper results and more accurate results because we have a lot more tools at our
Yes.
disposal.
Mhm.
Like like a long time ago, I mean, I've only heard of dowsing rods used to be find water, but
Water,
so
yeah.
far every case that we've all been together, I've been with Joshua and Melissa, we've had really good results with the dowsing rods. It seems like the spirits really like to communicate with those, crossing them and uncrossing and that kind of thing. And yeah, there's certain things too, rules to follow. You don't want to like lean forward or lean to the right or left. You want to try to keep
Mhm.
them as level as you can. Sometimes, when you first have them in your hand, you put them in, they'll already start to move just because your body moving or momentum. So you want to kind of reset it so it's going to stay stagnant and not move, and then ask your questions for yes or no. But then there's other things. There's certain devices that we didn't get any responses to in one place, and then took those same tools, the same apparatuses, in another place and had excellent result. So it's not always consistent, and I really believe that some of these entities kind of pick and choose. Like, should I use the Scare Bear today, the Spirit Box, SLS, or whatever they're going to do, or do I want to just communicate with words or work on the radio waves? But we're lucky that we have so many things to go and take on to investigation, and we didn't have all those things before. Maybe before it was, the old some of these EMF meters before the K2 came out and all that kind of stuff.
And I think overall, especially with Paranormal State, my best friend Gwen went to college with Katrina Weidman, one of the top paranormal investigators in the world. Basically, if you could see back watching the old
go ahead.
But if you see like some of the old episodes of Brian Buell and Paranormal State, our team is friends with those guys, and you can see it back then. They were using the Frank's box, which was the pre-Ghost box invented by Christopher Moon, and there was also they were also using like tape recorders, and now you can use digital recorders. So you can see literally within 12, 13 years since Paranormal State ended, how far the equipment has come in that time, and technology has come.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Most definitely.
Yeah. I also think, as it was mentioned, because
how often does your equipment corroborate? Go ahead. There's a lag.
I was just saying. I think it depends on, as it was mentioned, what spirit wants to use what piece of equipment. So during our Selma Mansion investigation, we were in what was obviously a child's room, and we had our Scare Bear, which is obviously a teddy bear that senses motion. So, we got immediate results with that, because obviously if we're communicating with spirits of children, that's going to obviously attract them. So, it's interesting what resonates with which spirit,
And I thought, what? Yay! Someone used my teddy bear.
Yes. So we got a lot of activity in that room, in that children's room. It was wow.
Not to mention, Sasha was also using her electroscope. We have one of the Paranology's electroscopes that picks up static electricity that was going off at the same time. And our friend Jerome Jones is the owner and founder of Paranology's, and usually gives us a lot of equipment. At the same time, our Mel meter, which picks up electromagnetic fields and detects EMF fields throughout the location, we had that was going off as well. And we also had the K2 meter was going off. So when you have multiple pieces of equipment going off all at once in one room in this third floor level of this house, you basically know there's something there. And the guy that was
there's got to be something there.
The husband of one of our guests that joined us that night, actually, he claims he saw a full body apparition and the wind looking out that window right before we went up there.
Yeah, we hadn't even been in that room. We hadn't even investigated the third floor. And prior to him coming into the mansion, he said, one of you were waving at me in the window. We said, we weren't even up there, that room was empty. Yeah. So that was
the same. Yeah. Was that the same room, Melissa, where I think one of you guys mentioned something about maybe hearing some fireworks outside the Selma Mansion, and I said, no, man, that's not fireworks, because
that's knocking.
I was standing. Yeah. I can hear a knocking inside the wall. It sounded like if you were to stick somebody inside the wall and they were knocking inside, and it was very loud. And I know you guys heard it kind of like backed up, like, whoa, what is that?
Yeah.
Yes, that's where the woman was seen waving, yeah.
And when Sasha and I were there with Brian J. Cano in October 2006, before we started our first investigation in December 9th of 2020, we actually captured several EVPs in the piano room. and that was one of the rooms that we were in with Brian. And then we also went there, as you know, as with Rick and Melissa and Sasha, and also we were actually able to get quite a few responses on the thermal camera and also the SLS camera. We were in the kitchen area. We captured a full body apparition of a servant woman, which Melissa was picking up on in the kitchen area. And we also got a thermal image captured that's available on phantomdetectives.org under investigations of that apparition that manifested itself for us. So we really felt also that night the equipment was also draining left and right. Our batteries were just going completely dead, like numerous times throughout that investigation.
It's such a pain in the butt, dude. Really, I've experienced that too many times before. You can't prepare enough. It might just be a couple minutes that you get off this full battery, and boop, you got nothing. And then what do you do for the rest of the investigation? It's tough sometimes. Off-world Atom. It used to be Off-world Adam. His mother made the correction after the delivery. Off-world Atom has a great question here. He says, when you carry technology, the Sabe, or as we know, the Sasquatch, avoid you like they can detect your equipment, do you think spirits and entities avoid you in the same way? Great question, brother.
I would say yes, they definitely do. Spirits and entities basically can, depending on, they can pick and choose who they want to basically communicate with and who they want to talk to. It's all based on like how the individual goes into a location and how, you know, what is their agenda when they go into that location. So our overall experience while investigations at doing some of these locations is every spirit will respond differently to every person based upon the personality of that person and what their overall agenda is going into that investigation. Are they there to be respectful and capture activity like we are, or are they going in trying to provoke, which we don't do, but other teams do?
No.
So it really all depends on basically what the person's agenda is going into that location.
Exactly.
And you know, I want to say one thing too, that like, okay, and I know I've talked to you about this, Josh and Melissa, but like, when we go, you know, we go into investigation. I mean, we don't go in with, you know, we want to provoke you and that kind of thing because I know right off the bat. I mean, if we had a reality show or something like that, you know, I believe in entertainment, but what I don't believe in is provoking these spirits. Like, come on, man, you did that to him. Now do it to me. You know, go ahead, slap my back or whatever. You know. And kind of do that because, yeah, I mean, I think some of the shows where they're kind of doing that, they're doing that, you know, maybe it's to get better ratings, that kind of thing, or feel
of course
that this is the kind of way to do it. But you know what? Maybe that's how they are in real life, and that's showing their personality. Maybe they're a bit of a bully to the people they work with, their friends or neighbors or whatever it is. And I always, the thing with me, I always thought, the way I live my life, the same way I go on investigation, you know, treat others the way you want to be treated, with kindness and respect. And you could carry that into your investigation. You'll probably get better results with that kind of mindset than you would if you go in with a very challenging, very kind of a bossy, demanding attitude. Aggressive,
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. Yeah.
That's the end. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, even if I... going into John Cardy's apartment and immediately encountering the angry woman, and I wouldn't necessarily call her evil. I wouldn't call her a negative entity. She was just saying, you know, this is my space. So again, I came across to her as, I'm humble. You know, thank you for welcoming me in. You know, my intentions are to be respectful and to give you a voice. So yes, as Rick said, it's all about going in there humbly, respectfully, never to challenge them. So, I mean, that's the way to go. Absolutely.
Yeah. You can't go in there with elbows raised, you know, being a complete bro, you know. I think even Zach Bagans had mentioned at one point, I must have seen an interview or something that he had narrated saying that, you know, when he was younger, he was bullied. So, you know, this is partially the reason he is the way he is today. But then again, you look at this guy, he's got the physical stature. You know, he's real machismo in certain respects. It's just not. It's just not the way to go about it. Yeah, go ahead, Josh.
You know what?
Funny.
I mean,
we actually just saw Jeff Bellinger, his writer and researcher in Gettysburg in June, and that's how we got the Selma Mansion investigation. Jeff is a lifelong friend of our teams, and he's been with Ghost Adventures since 2008, and he has been one of the most accurate and knowledgeable people in the field for the last 20 plus years.
And Dr. J Radio Live, if you guys are not familiar with him, please, I implore you to go and check out his channel, Dr. J Radio Live. He did recently talk to Jeff Belanger on his show, as well as a host of other people that you should be listening to. So I thought I'd throw that out there. Mr. Big Feet, thank you so much for the $5 super chat. He says, at the panel, seen the movie The Entity, they tried to freeze it in a lab. Third Phase, Goofonian, Dark Hour, Paranormal Aliens. Listen, I honestly haven't seen the movie, and there are a lot of movies that I'll tell you I haven't seen. You guys will be like, oh my God, I don't have the time. But I don't know if you guys have seen The Entity and can relate to that, but I'm not sure what he's referencing. But thanks for the $5 super chat, bro. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate your presence, man.
I wanted to say, too, that, you mentioned Zach Bagans feeling bullied, because, and you know what? I mean, growing up as a kid, and I came from a poor family and grew up in a rough neighborhood, and I remember, like, it seemed like the biggest bullies that I ever encountered was, just like, elementary school, junior high, high school, and then it seemed like when you're getting into some of the college classes, they're starting to get a little bit nicer, but I've had kids like try to, this guy I remember, punching me in the face for my lunch money and that kind of thing. I mean, now that would never happen because, I'm a martial art instructor and I've been for quite a while now. But, here's the thing, man. I mean, a lot of it's attitude. Like, I have a lot of different students. I teach them martial arts, but I teach them, to be respectful to other people. You know what I mean? And I still feel that way. I'm not a troublemaker. I don't start trouble with people. I enjoy martial arts and I enjoy teaching it, but I wouldn't even take on a student who wanted to act like, an ass, excuse my language, but to just be a jerk and be nasty to people. I mean, life's too short to have that attitude.
100%, 100%. And I understand that you guys, each of you, have had your own experiences with the paranormal, not only as a team, but obviously individually. So I do want to actually stick to the format on this one. I haven't been good about it, but I want to ask each one of you this specific question. What is, and I'm going to start with Josh, and we'll go to Melissa and up to Rick. What is the most negative experience that you've had on an investigation or entering a space that we describe? And versus that, what is the most positive experience that you've had? Josh, we'll start with you.
Sure. So in 2002, the most negative experience and most terrifying for me was I had the opportunity to investigate the General Wayne Inn, which is known as the Inn of the 17 Ghosts in Philadelphia, PA, with the late parapsychologist Micheline Mayer. I was there with a local team from Philadelphia at that time. And this was 2 years before that it was converted to a Jewish synagogue. And it was also featured on Unsolved Mysteries in 1987. And this place has been numerous, as mentioned, is one of the most haunted houses in all of Philadelphia. And there I actually felt in the wine cellar. I remember basically feeling very uneasy. And I felt that there was a spirit from the Revolutionary War there, a Hessian soldier that actually has been documented throughout the last 150 years at the inn. And I felt when taking pictures, I actually captured straight green and yellow light streaks in one of the pictures that I did in 2002. So that was one of the most negative experiences that I had. One of the most positive experiences that I had was during our first investigation of Sanderson Museum in Chadds Ford, where there basically we actually were captured in the violin room. We actually captured all of our equipment was going on. Sasha was able to capture several orbs at the same time the security camera was going off, and at the same time the Mel meter and the Rook EMF meters were going off. At the same time, our voice recorders picked up an EVP. So I think that was one of our most positive things. And also another positive thing that we had was while investigating Penhurst, Sasha and I actually captured, these feet basically on this rusted out door at the bottom of the Philadelphia building. And Penhurst is like one of the most haunted houses in the state of Pennsylvania.
Very cool. Melissa, how about you?
Well, so I've been on 2 investigations with our team so far. So I would say the most welcoming spirit I encountered was the servant at Selma Mansion. I mean, So when immediately entering the mansion, well, the energy in that place was so strong that I had to basically step out of there and catch my breath. And I wouldn't say it was a negative feeling. It was just overwhelming. But immediately the servant woman, we come to find out that her name is Martha. She was so welcoming. I mean, it was like she wanted to show you around the place. So, and that was wonderful. That was wonderful because that gave me a very positive vibe, you know, when going in there. So now, on the third floor, so the right side of the third floor is where we stuck with the most when investigating. That was the child's room, where we had the scare bear go off. So but the other side of the left side of the third floor, I would not even enter. I had such a negative feeling going on, and I felt like there was a gentleman protecting the children, but there was something about the other half, the left side of that third floor, that I wouldn't even go in. There was just something about this gentleman saying, hey, you know, you're not to enter this space. So we didn't even go in there and investigate. I just did not have a good feeling. I didn't necessarily feel like he wanted us in that space to begin with. So as we said, it's all about respect. So I stayed away from that wing, that area, and went about our business. So, but I wouldn't say that I had any horrible negative experiences. You know, as we said, the John Carty location, that had a lot of intense things going on. But thankfully, there was nothing where I've been scratched or pushed or anything. So hopefully that won't happen going forward. But yeah, a lot of experiences at the Selma Mansion for sure. You know, it was interesting.
By the way,
So,
fantastic
yeah.
shirt you're wearing.
Thank
there,
you.
Melissa. Oh, you're very welcome.
Descendant of Salem. So,
I was just in Salem earlier today. Fantastic.
are you serious?
Yeah.
Can I share something interesting?
That's
You
nice.
sure can. Hell yeah.
Okay, so I am descended from one of the victims, victims of the execution. My ninth great grandmother. We're celebrating her death date today. So yeah,
You're
yep,
kidding.
yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
curious.
So
Which
yeah.
way to Salem? Remember?
Yeah,
Which way
yeah.
to Salem, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And Rick, what about
So-
you? What's your most negative experience and your most positive experience that you've had? Again, it doesn't necessarily have to be on the team.
well,
It can be in your own
yeah.
personal investigations too.
I would have to say, well, right now, I mean, you know, I'm going to refer here to the paranormal investigations, but of course, I haven't been on anywhere near investigations that Joshua has. You know, I brought my investigation skills that have been very valuable to me and my interviewing skills, you know, into the team that have been very beneficial for me. Like I say, I've been very well trained in weather and astronomy and quite a bit of things. And so, but my first case that I investigated with Joshua and Sasha at the time was the Betsy Ross house. Okay. And when I remember when I was going in there, you know, we're doing the investigation and, you know, we were using the dowsing rods and that kind of thing. And Sasha was getting some pretty good responses, you know, and making some good, you know, spirit communications. I also felt that, you know, for whatever reason, I think she was like, when she asked questions, she was actually talking to Betsy Ross herself, according to the answers that were given, that she was getting Betsy Ross. And, you know, I almost kind of, to me, I felt like a real kind of a peaceful feeling, like this very nice lady, you know, Betsy Ross, and making these flags and things like that, and, you know, cooking in the kitchen. It almost reminded me just kind of like a friendly, peaceful grandma kind of a figure. That's kind of how, like, I felt that positive energy in that way. And I think the most negative thing to me was in the John Carty apartment investigation case. And so, you know, when we were asking questions and things like that, So a lot of the questions, a lot of the answers that we got were established based on responses we had to different questions. And I remember, when we figured out that there was a 19-year-old young man that took his life and things like that, I felt really, really bad, and I started asking some questions to the spirit, trying to find out, and I said, hey, man, like, I'm sorry that happened, that you felt that you had to take your own life. I really feel bad that you felt that you needed to do that. And, showing, and I was actually kind of feeling a little bit emotional at the time because, I felt like I was making this connection. And some of the responses were that, it had to do with some family problems and that sort of thing. And maybe he just went over the edge and thought, I can't take it anymore. And he just ended his life, There was also, we also picked up that there, was somebody murdered there and stuff like that too. So, but you really, sometimes you really don't know. Sometimes it's kind of like a feeling, and then sometimes it's like you're all of a sudden going back and running through your EVP session and you're hearing things that you're like, wow, man, I didn't know that person was there. I didn't know they were going to say that. Like, for an example, the profanities that I picked up with this lady, we call her the potty mouth spirit. She's got a potty mouth, and she was saying some pretty bad words, right? And I remember playing them back, and I thought, wow, number one, I was doing really compelling evidence because you're not going to have that kind of profanity on like some kind of a talk show on the radio or AM, FM, that kind of thing. So, but it was just like very clear, like, wow, she's really angry and upset. Where you might not see just how angry she is, but at that time, she's letting me know, I'm pissed, man. You're coming in here with your AM, FM sweep, ghost box, and then they get mad,
Yeah.
It's funny you bring up the profanity because I've encountered many spirits, and through clairvoyance as well, I have a very specific guide by the name of Eric Medhus, who absolutely has no qualms in using strong language and profanity, but he doesn't do it in the way of anger. But if somebody were to hear him, if they had a predisposition to that type of language, they may take it differently because of the language that it is. But again, as Melissa said, I think it really does come back down to intention, not only ours, but also on. Let me paint for you a scenario that you may get a phone call one day about this exact situation. I'm a paranormal investigator, let's say. I pick up a very negative, non-human entity and I bring it home with me. Now, it's afflicting me in many different ways. It's affecting people in my life. I call you guys. I say, hey, listen, this is what I'm dealing with. What do you guys suggest? What do you do? What would be your protocol in this circumstance?
Well, the first protocol that we'll do before we, much like everything, we have the website now, phantomdetectives.org. That's step one with the process. You want to basically talk to us or send or contact us first before we take on every case under methodology. In our article section, we actually have a clear protocol outlined right on our website, which is basically send off the initial email. Then what we do is after I get the email in the phantomdetectives@gmail.com inbox, I look at it and then I share it with the team. And then basically we talk about this in our group text. And then basically if this is a case that we consider, taking on, then we'll basically have Rick contact the client, schedule a time and day and all that, and basically sit down with the client and have a conversation with them. And after we have a conversation with the client, then we'll decide as a team collectively if we're going to go to this investigation. So after we reach a collective decision in collaboration in our group text, then we go ahead and we basically book the investigation either through email or through phone, depending on how we are communicating with the client. And we pick a date and time, and then we just go out and we do the proper investigation. And what we do is we also go ahead and we go ahead and not only book the investigation, but also we do, we try to do walkthroughs as much as possible with the actual business owners or the clients that are having these experiences first, so we know exactly where to set up the equipment in the hot spots. We do have a 4-camera DVR system that we use on our investigations. So it's important to know when we're meeting with these clients exactly where the activity is so we can set up those 4 cameras. And then basically once we set up those 4 cameras, then we can start going in and do our baseline investigation, which is basically where Rick and Melissa will work together. And basically, Melissa will use a pen and paper and Rick will use SLS camera or the thermal camera, and we'll document it. And we'll start doing the investigation from there.
But what if I said to you, listen, this is bothering me. What can I do tonight? Let's say I'm talking to you on the phone, or we got in touch in this way. You've reviewed what I'm going through, and I'm saying, what can I do to put myself at ease right now? Can I go into some sort of meditation? Can I sage my whole house? And the reason I'm bringing up sage specifically is because the 2 negative attachments that I had on separate occasions did not like sage. In fact, they got more powerful.
The nice thing is we actually have Dave Giuliano from the Ghost Hunter store who teaches classes in demonology. We also have Bill Bean, who's also a well-known demonologist who's been on the Holzer Files. So he basically, we would recommend to some of our clients, if they want to remove negative entities, they can try basically using holy water to purify themselves. They can also try burning sage throughout every area of their house. There's steps that they can do initially to remove, basically cleansing by themselves. And if they feel that they can't handle it, then we'll come in and do the cleansing after we do the investigation.
Yeah.
Sometimes people are creating their own negativity too.
Yeah. Yeah. But I also understand what you're asking. You're asking, well, what can I do immediately? What can I do immediately? Because something is affecting me. So, I mean, I have a little bit of training in banishing, if you will. I mean, you can walk counterclockwise around the room to banish negative, energy. You can seal your space going clockwise with salt. So there's various techniques a person can do, and I'm well versed in that for the most part. I understand, as Josh was mentioning, there's other people that are more specifically trained in that area. But yeah, I mean, if someone were to reach out to us, I could give them a quick little exercise that would hopefully help them in a pinch.
And we could also recommend prayers of Saint Michael the Archangel, basically, basically that also the Saint Michael prayer is also very common that people can do themselves, and we'll put that on our website so people can see it basically in our article section. If they want to be able to do it themselves, that prayer will be right on the website.
This is actually a scenario that I'm describing to you that was with the first. No, I'm sorry. This is with the negative entity that was in a home that I moved into. Everything went haywire, and I reached out to the now defunct Seven Hills Paranormal group that was around for quite some time. Michael Kramer was the founder of that group, and I spoke to him. And the first thing he wanted to do was come into the home and see the state of it. Obviously having a very clean environment, your own energy and order is essential to, bringing some sort of balance back into your life. And although I understood that in its entirety at the time, I thought it was a very interesting aspect, as I was not thinking in the totality of things being in the experience myself. Again, that's very interesting, the way that, some people will handle these type of entities. I think in the end, maybe drawing some of these things or keeping them to yourself based on thoughts or your own attitude, something along those lines. I had something more on this, but I'll come back to it another point. One thing I wanted to ask you was, when you investigations or any paranormal spot, okay, and you bringing your own energy into this, do you think, because it's been said many times as a possible theory, that when we walk into spaces, we may be creating that paranormal energy with our unconscious paranormal activity with our unconscious energy? Are we the proponents of some of this paranormal activity? If I'm sitting in my room in a glass the table,
I think you definitely have a valid question. I mean, I think, I'm sure there's a possibility of that happening, but I will say this, that some of the shows I've seen, to where, you'll see some paranormal investigations where, some really negative spirits, some very angry spirits have let themselves be known in these people's
Mhm.
homes. And the investigator would be asking questions like, okay, well, you know, how's everybody getting along? Or,
Yes.
sometimes it's a big group of family and, everybody's at each other's throats fighting.
Hmm.
And,
Right.
and there's a lot of
Hmm.
anger that's built up. And I believe too that, negativity breeds
It's
negativity.
negativity. Yeah.
So you're bringing that negative energy in to your dwelling because,
Hmm.
everybody around you is negative. You're negative, and,
Yeah.
and so is everyone else. So
Hmm.
I really think that, some of these people that, um, do suffer from some type of demonic oppression or possession, mind you. Sometimes maybe they were playing with the dark arts, maybe some Ouija boards and something, satanic rituals or whatever it may be,
Right.
things
Yeah.
they shouldn't have been doing, or maybe that it was just them, you know, something latched onto them because they had so much negative
Negative.
energy.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, something evil that wanted to take over them, a demon,
Yeah.
What is the definition of a demon? Without any religious connotation behind it, how would you define a demon?
Well, we actually have four classifications of hauntings. We have intelligent hauntings, which are basically spirits that directly interact with the living. Basically, there's residual hauntings, which is like what we Jason Hawes and Grant Wilson are friends of the team who say it's like a tape recorder that plays itself over and over again. There
Residual,
are
yeah.
also poltergeist hauntings, which are basically like unseen entities who throw things around, who basically can levitate things, much like Keith Linder of the Bothell Hell House up in Washington. And then there is also demonic hauntings, which are basically negative entities who basically prey on the living that attach themselves to specific people. So our definition of a negative entity is something that's inhuman that is inhabiting this. It could be a shadow figure, it could be something, a negative oppression, but something that's negative that's attaching itself to the living, that's preying on them and basically affecting them emotionally and physically.
Hmm. Yep.
Very well said, my friend.
Hmm.
I think so. Yeah, good answer, man.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
We're looking we're getting close to the bottom of the hour here, but I do have a couple more questions I'd like to ask you.
Sure.
The first thing I'd like to bring forth is, what's the general public's attitude towards ghost hunting and ghost investigation teams today? Again, knowing that we've been saturated by all of this entertainment, if you will, throughout the years.
I think overall it's really it's getting more. The field is rapidly growing. On
Hmm.
September 25th, we're going to be participating in the world's largest ghost hunt with Maria Schmidt, and basically at the Sanderson Museum in Chadsford, Pennsylvania. It's where 200 plus teams from around the world investigate all at once in various time zones, and it's a live stream thing over the Spirit Realm Network. And we're going to be going on live at 8 o'clock for investigation 6. And basically, this is going to give us worldwide publicity for what we are trying to see. So I think the field is rapidly expanding. There's new
Hmm.
equipment, there's new TV shows, there's new theories. And also a lot of people, in fact, they actually had a survey recently in newspapers from across the country that said one out of every two people believe that spirits and UFOs do exist.
Hmm.
That's curious because you go back 20 years, you're going to find a much different statistic,
Yes.
in the way of acceptance at
Yes.
large. I mean, and if we
Hmm.
remember back in the 80s and the 90s, how did you get this information? You went on television, you looked through the preview guide, and you found something that covered this in the way of a documentary or unsolved mysteries or something along
Yeah.
those lines. And I've found that they were less rigid when it came
Hmm.
to presenting some of these stories in video footage. I don't know if it was just the ignorance of the time or if people were just generally uneducated even at the higher levels of, production. Look at the X-Files and John
Hmm.
D'Souza. I mean, how did the X-Files the first season come to pass? It was because So, you know, these are, you look back, these
Chris
were stored. Yep, go ahead.
Chris Carter was really taking something that was revolutionary at that time, who was the creator of the X Files, and brought it to a screen with Gillian Anderson and made it so relevant and for 7 seasons, and really opened up so many eyes. As did people like Linda Moulton Howe, who worked with Art
Hmm.
Bell for many years on Dreamland and Coast to Coast AM. So you can really see basically what these people did was they basically took something back in the day and they expanded it and they made it into like a whole entire field basically. And you can see basically like back then it wasn't as accepted and people thought, hey, you don't, there's no such thing as this stuff. But now
Mhm.
more and more it's coming out that there's UFOs are real, ghosts are real, Bigfoot's real.
Mhm.
So I think it's a much more open discussion now, thanks to the people that helped pioneer it.
Yeah, I
Oh,
think
100%.
technology. Yeah, technology.
Yeah, I
What
mean,
we have
it's
today.
really,
Yeah,
yep, technology's gotten really big. I mean,
yeah.
and I remember, being, you know, actually a long time ago before I was even into this stuff. And I remember, a place I used to live in, and, and I called, I said, hey, the weird things have been happening, TV's coming on and off. And they came in with a group of 3 people that do investigations, and they asked some questions, did an interview. But I tell you what, man, I mean, it was probably a pocket tape recorder with the real tape on it, um, or some cassette tape kind of thing, cassette recorder, a notepad, and maybe an old EMF meter, and that's pretty much it. And the other thing too, yeah, they'd be taking some digital photos and that kind of thing. But compared to now, I mean,
Hmm.
in the investigation that I had at the apartment I lived at the time, I mean, they with everybody there, the 3 people there, they might have had tops maybe, and that's pushing it, maybe like $300 worth of equipment, probably even less than that, compared to several thousands of dollars of equipment that,
Hmm.
that Josh has, that we all have put together.
Hmm.
A lot of
Yeah.
stuff. There's a lot more technology, a lot more money
Hmm.
on the table.
Yeah. Something interesting though, looking back at the old cases, especially what Ed and Lorraine Warren did back in the old days, it's amazing though with the lack of technology they had back then, what they were still able to capture. So I still find that very interesting. I mean, so
And it's
yeah.
especially the work of Dr. Hans Holzer,
Yeah.
who basically is some of our
Hmm.
biggest role models. We're friends of Dave Schrader's, we're friends of Shane and Cindy's. And
Hmm.
basically, when they reopened those old files from 60 years ago with his
Hmm.
mediums, Sybil and Ethel, really hoping making this field relevant and, really open up these old cases from 60 plus years ago and being able to make them into something new was quite
Hmm.
amazing to us. And we have been major. I've read many of Hans Holzer's books over the years, and he to me really was the father of ghost hunting. He made it possible for people like us to really start and really follow in his footsteps and continue that work, just as Dave, Cindy, and Shane have.
Absolutely.
That
Yeah.
all those guys, they're legends in what they've done, and they're like the Whitney
Hmm.
Strieber of that particular field. I mean, people know about him, they know that name, but
Hmm.
they don't really know the extent of the research that the Holzer family has done throughout the years, especially Hans. Beginning there. I mean, look at America's Stonehenge. I had to
Oh yeah,
revisit
and
that when I was putting that together. Go ahead.
and Whitley and Art Bell did a book together called The Coming Global Superstorm in 2000, which was written about I think like the turn of the century and how it was going to affect climate change and all that. And that was when I've studied that book and read it inside and out, and it's a classic.
It sure is a classic, and anybody who hasn't read that, I definitely once again implore you to go and pick up a copy or find a digital rendition online. It's very much worth your time. Tina Mobley, I'm so sorry. I've had you up here for a minute. Thank you so much for the $3 super chat. Listen, if I don't keep you up there, nobody knows who gave the super chat, and I forget. So this helps me too. So he says, buying a coffee for Michael. Thank you. I don't drink coffee, but there are plenty other liquid refreshments that I could buy with that $3. Thank you so much. I appreciate you
Exactly.
there. Okay, guys, listen. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to tell me where everybody can find you, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to share something from Montauk is Strange. It's a newer channel, but he's a fantastic guy, actual historian of Montauk itself, not just Camp Hero. You guys can hang out backstage, or you can hang out with me here. It totally is up to you. I don't know if you have other responsibilities after the fact, so I figure I'd open up with that to let you know. But
Sure,
first off,
you can-
go ahead. Tell me where we can find you guys.
Sure.
We want to follow
First
you.
thing, so the first thing we can do is you can also go to our website, phantomdetectives.org, PHANTOM detectives.org. That's our first brand. You can find us right on social media, and at the bottom of our website there are you can follow us on Instagram, you can follow us on Twitter, and you can follow us on Facebook. So basically, Phantom Detectives on basically that first website, and we also have Extraterrestrial Research Center, which is Rick's also other brand that he has with a director of investigations for that. I think it's erc2explore.com.
The website. Yeah, you can find me there at www.erc number 2explore.com. And anybody out there that, if you feel you have a case that's extraterrestrial in nature and you want to have your case investigated, feel free to submit your case, and I'd be happy to take a look at it in the sighting report and share it with my director of research.
Mhm.
And again, guys. Yep,
yeah.
go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
And I also have my own business at working as a psychic medium, whether I do one-on-one readings, small group readings, whatever the person prefers. So I could be found on Facebook at Psychic Medium Autumn. That's my Facebook page, and also on Psychic Medium Autumn. I'm sorry, it's Psychic Medium Autumn Melissa. That's my Facebook page. And also psychicmediumautumnmelissa.com.
Fantastic.
Mhm.
Josh,
Very
anything
good.
to add?
Yeah, also, you can also find us. We also have darkmatternews.com, which used to belong to Leo Ashcraft for Art Bell. Basically, we purchased the rights to that in May of 2021, and we've relaunched it, and we have a new website. Basically, we're relaunching news articles, kind of like similar to Mysterious Universe. That's darkmatternews.com.
Fantastic. Guys, definitely go and check out their work. They've been around for a long time doing what they're doing, and now they've converged into one solid unit. And as you guys have seen throughout this broadcast, they know what they're talking about. They're very highly versed, educated, researched, experienced in this field. And if you have an issue or you have questions, my pleasure, man. You guys put it all on the table, and I'm just looking at what I'm looking at, man. It's as simple.
Appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate
Yes,
it.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you
Contact
so
these
much.
guys. Yeah,
Yes.
my pleasure, guys. So I'm going to play this. What this is, guys, that I'm going to show you now is a little walkthrough. So as some of you know, I went to Montauk with Long Island Bigfoot and Brian Minnick of Montauk is Strange, and we spent 4 days down in that area. Of course, it was a fantastic adventure. I've put together an hour and 20-minute documentary for you guys. I'm just finishing up the touches on that. Should be out possibly by the weekend,
Awesome.
which will obviously go over everything that we went through. But for the time being, everybody was recording in respect to their channels and presentation. And what I'd like to show you right now is us on Friday the 13th walking around Montauk, and there's actually a very specific house named the Brewster House. If you guys are not familiar with this history, it's long and sordid, but long story short, Al Capone was staying there. Teddy Roosevelt was staying there.
Oh, nice.
A lot of
Yeah.
well-known
Amazing.
figures. Now, this house is incredibly dilapidated. I swear, part of the sighting is just someone knocked together some shingles, and that's part of the sighting. So you can see the state that this is in. But I'm going to share this with everybody very quickly because it was such a fantastic time, and I think that you guys should go over and subscribe to Montauk is Strange and Long Island Bigfoot because they do some fantastic work. And if you haven't seen Montauk is Strange yet, believe me, the knowledge this guy has, you have no idea what's to come. Let me just put it that way.
And let me say,
I have
rest
to
in
ask
peace.
you this real quick. Is this show that has this been recorded so we can go back and view it later or share it with other people?
Absolutely. You absolutely
Great.
may. This is on Montauk's is Strange, his channel, just by that name, and these are all archived. You can go up and check them out.
And let me say one thing
Yeah,
about
and
Montauk.
I was talking about your show though.
This
Dark
one is
Matter.
yes.
Your
Oh,
show.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, is it recorded? Is it recorded on YouTube?
Yes, this will be in the archives and accessible for anybody who'd like to see it. Probably about a half hour after, if I were to guess on the algorithms. There, it takes a minute to
Okay,
process.
perfect.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you
Excellent.
guys can link this and do whatever you'd like with it. Of course, full permission.
And let me say, the
Granted.
Montauk Project, rest in peace, Preston Nichols, who really worked on that with Al Bielek on the Philadelphia experiment. And we'll always remember Preston and his contributions with Peter Moon.
You know, it's funny, if you guys go back into, actually, I don't know if this is in the archives. It might be. It might be. There was a reading that I had by Michelle Gray, and this was during the time that I was still exploring my connection with Montauk and the Montauk Project. And sure enough, in this reading, she looks at me, because I had asked the guys to be with me, and she says, who's wearing the Hawaiian shirt? I said, what do you mean? She goes, he's a portly guy, kind of quiet, but he's got this look on his face. You know, he's wearing a Hawaiian shirt. That's Preston Nichols. It was nobody else. And of course, as soon as I said that, I could feel that energy in the room. Anyway, I digress. We'll get on that. Believe me, there's plenty there to speak on. But for the meantime, guys, enjoy this.
Thank you.
Cool.
That's open, but obviously looks open, but yeah, that's the back house. Now somebody's house is down there, so stay out of those view. These metal guys around the back. My cousin bought this thing once, and then he sold it again. Yeah, crazily enough, I never got to check it out when he owned it. But we did metal detect here, and it was pretty cool. Holy shit. Really flying pieces.
It was interesting how accessible this was, although I'm sure we weren't supposed to be there. It was in broad daylight on somebody's property off to the side. You know, we were in and out within moments, but it was very accessible.
Yeah.
That's
I
amazing.
heard like
And you know, this
a
reminds me a
voice or
lot
something.
of a location. I can do another interview just about this alone. The Summerwind project. I'll have to send you some emails about that. Rebuilding a haunted house. We're doing that up in Wisconsin with a colleague named
This
Craig
wraparound
Neary,
duct
and
that
I'll
went
be
around
more
the
than
whole thing.
happy
No
to
kidding.
get you in touch with him.
Al Capone was sitting on
Yeah.
the porch here, just chilling in 1920s when it was called.
Yeah, you know, you hear that growling, that deep growling sound, you know?
It's sometimes bores people, but if it makes a connection, you know.
Yeah.
Holy crap! There's a nice hornet's nest right there.
Yeah, you always got to watch out for the wildlife.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yes.
How many floors is that building? Looks pretty tall.
I mean, Brian would be able to tell me
Like,
better, but if I were to guess, I'd say it's about 3 floors, excluding the
Wow.
basement. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm taking an educated guess here, though.
Yeah, people vandalize this.
Look at
Yeah.
that place.
Oh yeah, look. Chief Fire Marshal.
This is where Al Capone stayed.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Can't imagine the amount of energy that's in there too. Still there.
When I first looked into this door, there was something way deep in the back, but the space itself was so cavernous it couldn't have occupied the physical parameters. There was something much bigger in there, much darker. It kind of made me go, oh. I felt it as soon as I walked
Yeah.
over to that door. Of course, it just piqued my curiosity.
All right.
Is that door locked? Is the
Not
door
anymore.
locked?
No, it wasn't. Somebody had cut the padlocks off a couple times.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we just
Okay.
opened up and took a peek in. It was really unstable, very
Okay. You
compromised.
couldn't
way of
go in and
integrity.
explore. Yeah.
Not really.
Yeah.
Not safely, anyway.
Yeah.
You can smell it too.
Oh yeah.
There's
Might
a
be
beautiful
full of
hearth
asbestos or
fireplace over on the right. Oh yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure. I mean, we're looking before.
Yeah.
Oh God. Yeah, I mean, lead paint, all the great stuff.
Pretty fucking
Yeah.
cool.
You almost need to come in with a respirator, you know?
I'm glad you
Oh, he
got
certainly
a
does.
Gas
shot there,
mask.
too.
Yeah.
Too bad I didn't have my spotlight, but
You know what? This was good. At least we get to see it.
look at these old beams, man.
I still can't
Is there a
believe, like, you see
caretaker that manages house?
Slanted downward.
I would assume because it appears to be on a property where there is another residence, although it is set back quite far into the woods. I would assume that it's either part of that
Yeah.
property or it's
And they
managed
rolled
by
down
the
and kinda
town.
sunk it under the
Obviously
foot.
not very well.
No, I bet you it wasn't always like this.
You
Yeah,
guys
no.
can't really
Oh.
see it, but that
Sure there's-
that porch is on like
Cool. Where do you want to?
like this weird
do the same?
45-degree angle.
Stand right there.
Cool, man.
Oh, speaking of
Yeah,
that,
oh, yeah, yeah.
my
You can
friend,
see it slopes down, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I was going to say our fifth member. We have a guy named Mark Anthony, the psychic lawyer. His new book comes out October 5th, called The Afterlife Frequency.
450
And you give
blood.
me
Oh, cool.
Yes, I will
I'll
get
have
you.
to take that and put it in the
Nice.
description
Yeah.
after
Yes.
the show. Please, that would be
Yep.
awesome.
Yep, I'll get you in touch with him.
You'll like that, man.
check.
I appreciate it.
All right. Just
Hold
hold it.
it.
Yep.
Yeah, you can hold it. That's fine.
Cool.
All right, so essentially right now what I'm doing is I'm having Brian speak for the first time
Yeah.
on camera about the history of the place.
So we're standing at the Brewster house.
This is so cool.
And we just took a peek inside. It's pretty dark, but this house is very old, and the structures in the basement they said are from the 1600s.
The house looks like it's
Then the back of the
basically
house,
dates back to the time of the
corner
before
there,
even
we'll
before the
show
country
you.
was founded.
1700s,
Wow, look at that place.
all the way
At
up
first
to
I thought-
16.
At first I thought you
was
said
it?
Rooster
Grove
House.
It's like a very popular boarding
Sounded like
house.
Rooster at
The
first. I
boarding
thought, how
house.
many roosters that live there?
Teddy Roosevelt. Teddy Roosevelt actually stayed here.
Brian, what was it, 1680,
In,
1630
1888
that Montauk
for
was
a
established? I know you told me and I can't
fishing
remember.
around in the area here for a few days. Then Al Capone stayed here in the 20s when this became the Brewster House, and that was during the Prohibition era. So you could just imagine Al Capone sitting on this deck somewhere, you know.
And it's funny you
sitting in a
mentioned
chair,
Al
dropping
Capone because his cell is
coins
actually still at
out of
Eastern
my
State
phone, going coins
Penitentiary in
off the
Philadelphia.
But this house itself
It is.
is very has a lot of dark history as well.
Love to see
As
that
you
one
From
day.
the outside, it's got a lot
Wow.
of
It's
rooms,
great.
and they're in great state of decay. Something about it makes you not even want to
Mid-1600s.
stare into what's in there.
Thank you, brother.
But this, at one point in the 1950s, was the police headquarters, and the chief of police here, William Ashour, hung himself in the ballroom. And he's not the only caretaker of the house that died by suicide. Another person
Wow.
who lives in this area behind us. He worked here every day. He went home one night and committed suicide. So he's kind of like the second caretaker
Man.
who did that.
Hmm.
So maybe something inside is driving people to
Mm.
that. Maybe it's something else, a coincidence. But nevertheless,
They're angry
this
because they're
house has
not
a lot
getting
of
paid
history.
enough money.
And if
Yeah.
you look from the outside, it's a stereotypical haunted house. I mean,
They're angry 'cause they
you can
can't
see it
drink.
in drawings
Remember
and
Prohibition?
Halloween posters.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's right. Where's the booze,
We're gonna
man?
take a spin around as best we can. We're not really supposed to be this high up or opening the door. Somebody clipped the lock, as you can see, and there's plenty of signs to keep
Not
out.
one, but two padlocks,
But
fresh,
we'll
right there
see
on the
what we
ground.
can.
Wow.
Thanks for checking it out with us.
Usually people come around and cover that up
Decent?
lickety split,
Thanks,
especially
man.
if it's a state. They don't mess around.
Mhm.
Man, yeah. I mean,
All right, guys, I want to let you know that Montauk is
Very
Strange
cool,
has
man,
a
very
lot
cool.
more on his channel, guys. Go and check him out. Subscribe and like and all those good things.
Awesome.
In the meantime, I want to thank you guys once again for
Yes.
being on the show tonight. This has been awesome. Appreciate you
Yeah.
sticking in through all the technological difficulties. We seem to smooth out a little bit towards the end here. Thankfully,
Thank
latter
you
part
so
was
much.
much
Thank
nicer.
you.
Hey, my pleasure.
thank you so much
And,
for having us. Definitely, man.
Yeah, we'll
Oh,
do it. We'll
believe
do it
me.
again anytime.
Yes.
Oh, I'd love to have you guys back on, especially, with the investigations that you guys have coming up, whatever is there in the way of potential. We can come back and talk about your experiences with that and whatever else you'd like to do.
Oh, absolutely.
great.
And,
Sounds
and
awesome,
we're actually also going to be featured in a magazine article in September that will be released in Paranormal Underground right around the time of National Ghost Hunting Day, September 25th. So we'll be featured in a magazine. We'll be more than happy to send a link to that so people can order that magazine.
Fantastic. I mean, look,
That's-
there's so much
that's
happening for
great,
these
man.
guys. So much happening for these guys,
Yeah.
and they're just starting.
You got
As
to
a
admit
team.
one thing, man. Joshua can sure memorize a lot of names. I
He
always told
certainly
him that.
can.
Yeah, he'll tell you everybody's first and
Yes.
last name. That's great. I
Yep.
wish I could do that. Yeah.
Well, given what you do, in certain ways, Josh, that I understand, it would behoove you to be able to remember names quite well, my friend. So you seem to be in the right place that you're supposed to be, as do
Yes.
both of you in respect to life and what we're doing here in the field.
Yes.
All right, guys, thank you very
That's
much. I'll
great,
take you
man.
off for
Thank
the
you.
moment. I'll
Thank
close out the
you.
show. If you want to hang out, cool. If you got to go, I understand. Either way, I'll be
Yeah.
backstage in
Got
about
to take
5
the
minutes.
dogs out. Yeah, thank you,
Yep,
man.
Yeah.
totally
Thank you.
understand it, guys. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Take care.
We'll talk to
So
you
Adios,
love
soon.
us too. Have a
everybody.
good night. Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Thanks a lot.
All right.
Good night. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. I saw a lot of you in the chat tonight having a fantastic time, which is nothing new, and I'm happy to be able to say that. Thank you for your support. We have a lot coming up. I know I've been a bit absent lately with the channel in general, and that is because I've been out traveling so much and putting together material in the way of these premieres. This Montauk, I'm calling it a documentary because it's a consecutive walkthrough, essentially, of the experiences that we all encompassed and the people that we got a chance to sit down and talk to regarding Camp Hero, the Montauk Project, Montauk in general, because it's not just Camp Hero. We often think about that one location when we think about Montauk, which is of course appropriate, but stemming from that, there are so many more places that are odd and anomalous, and the energy entering in Montauk hits you like a freight train. And it was actually observed by myself and Long Island Bigfoot at the exact same time. I know that there were other personal accounts that I have with Brian Minnick where we were feeling this too, but I unfortunately did not record those moments, although I kept that camera rolling as much as I could. This will be out again, hopefully by the weekend. I'd like to shoot for Friday, but again, I don't want to shortchange anything on this. It is a very long production, and again, won't sell it short. But once again, thank you to all my moderators. Thank you to my super chatters and every single one of you for being here on Dark Hour Paranormal, supporting and chiming in on the chat. We really do appreciate all of your perspectives and questions, because guess what? You guys in the chat are just extensions of me. I'm learning as much as you are. I have the questions too. So when you guys ask them and I can get to those, it really, really helps enrich the show, and I appreciate you 100-fold. All right, guys, no outro tonight. Couldn't get the internet to work, so I'm just going to keep on that motif. Thankfully, it's been smooth. But once again, thank you so much, and we'll see you next time on Dark Hour Paranormal. In the meantime, stay vigilant, stay educated, and for fuck's sake, stay critical, huh? Stay critical. Ciao. That was for you, Brian. Ciao.